If people think about Italy, they think about three things: Rome, the Vatican, Pisa and the Leaning Tower, and Florence. Florence, it's because of the artistic treasures. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful city, just incredibly beautiful. The Uffizi Gallery has paintings by all of the major artists of the Italian Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci is buried there, Michelangelo is buried there. Florence is an exciting city because it really is the birthplace of the Italian Renaissance. And the Renaissance is that period where Europe changed over, and you had men like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and it really totally changed not just art, but the way of thinking and the way the people looked at the world. And really, if it hadn't been for the Italian Renaissance, guys like Columbus would never have been motivated to go out and explore the New World. So it's a very, very important city historically, and a beautiful city. So Florence was actually established in 59 BC by Julius Caesar as kind of a retirement village for his troops. And as such, unlike most medieval cities, it did not have a bunch of circular streets. The circular streets or crooked streets were to protection in case they were invaded, because you couldn't shoot an arrow around the corner. But because you had nothing but Roman troops, retired soldiers living there, nobody's going to attack. So it was laid out in this neat grid-like pattern, like a military camp. And one of the things that still remains from that original city is the bridge across the river Arno. And that was a very important bridge, and the city was important because of the river. The river is why they built the city there. The river was really important, and the bridge connected the two sides of the city and the two main palaces. And in those days, there were all these little shops, not the expensive jewelry shops like there are today, but just little shops for ordinary people to do their shopping. So the sculpture of David, which is just synonymous with Florence, was sculpted by Michelangelo. Originally, the statue was intended to stand on top of the cathedral, but it never made it there. And another guy had the commission. He was fired because they didn't like what he was doing. And so that piece of marble lay abandoned in the courtyard of the Duomo, the cathedral, for 25 years. And then they hired Michelangelo to do it. Michelangelo was only 26 years old at the time, and he did the David, which is one of the artistic masterpieces in the whole world. And it shows David it's intended to show him just before he went into battle with Goliath. And he's got his sling in over his shoulder, he's got the rocks in his hand, and he's contemplating going out to do battle with this giant. The original of David is in the art school, but the copy stands in front of the city hall. And that old palace was actually begun in 1299, known as the Palace of the Medici. Later it became the town hall, then it became a museum, now it's the town hall as well as the mayor's office. The Duomo, or Cathedral of Florence, is just spectacular, and these churches weren't necessarily built for the glory of God. They were built for a city to show off its wealth and its power, and this one really does. If you're really ambitious, you can go all the way up to the top of the dome. That's a tremendous dome because it was built without any structure. Most domes were built with a wooden structure, and then they built over the top. That one was built just by putting all these bricks at the right angle to get them to stay in place. You couldn't go into the cathedral unless you were a baptized Christian. Then you could go in. So the first place you had to go was to go into the baptistry, be baptized, and then you could go into the cathedral. So the interesting thing in Pisa, and there really is only one thing to see in Pisa, and that's what they call the Square of Miracles. That's where the cathedral is, that's where the baptistry is, that's where the Leaning Tower is. And because the subsurface of that soil was kind of mushy and not very good, but they built these buildings anyhow, and they didn't really know all the engineering facts that we know today. So all three of those buildings are leaning one way or another. The worst one is the Tower of Pisa. That tower started leaning during the construction of the first two floors. And so they tried to correct it, and it kept leaning. Then they would stop for a while. Then they would someone get another idea. They'd start all over again. It would start leaning again. And so it has always been a leaning tower. It wasn't designed that way. It's just the bell tower for the cathedral. Today, it's about at the top, it's about 13 feet, or about 4 meters from askance from where it would stand if it were standing directly straight. And in 1990, because they were afraid the whole thing was going to fall over, they closed the tower, they took the heavy bells out, they put lead weights around the bottom, they put wires to hold it up, they evacuated all the buildings around there, and they took out a lot of the subsoil and replaced it with new subsoil, did new engineering. And so really, by about 2000, they declared that the tower has stopped moving and should be good for another 300 years. But it's just a spectacular collection of beauty and majestic artwork.